All right, man. Let's hit it.
Okay. Before we go, before you go, before they go, before we all go, what is this? What are we doing?
Yeah. So, dear listener, if you're new to these types of episodes, it's a periodic series that we do where, because of the consistently breakneck pace of release of product by Wizards of the Coast, we like to say, hey, before you go get into all the new stuff, don't forget there were some recent-ish sets.
There's other new stuff that you forgot about.
It's
already old, but it's new.
Old new, right?
But it's old.
It's from the last
and nobody cares.
Year, and maybe you should go back and if you're not finding stuff from the most recent set, if you're not a Marvel person, go back to one of these other sets that happens to be a Marvel set. But
stupid. All right.
So here are the sets that we're going to cover this episode. Kind of. This is going to be a weird episode. So how we do this is we collect decks from our listeners, from our Patreon supporting listeners. This is the Tech Tutor tier. If you're going on to Patreon and looking, we just solicit that level for decks. Typically, over the last several times we've done deck solicitations, we will get 15, 20, maybe even 25 deck submissions. It must be summertime, or maybe there's other theories. So we only got 10 this time. So my theory is that maybe some of these sets weren't as beloved, and also people are busy at the beach, something along those lines.
Okay.
Anyways, so the balance of coverage of these sets will be a little different. We're going to start with Edge of Eternities, for which I have just one deck to present to you all from Tyler, aka T Coats, if you're looking for them in the Discord channel. This is going to be for the Infinite Guideline Station.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So the Infinite Guideline Station is a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green for an legendary artifact spacecraft. When the Infinite Guideline Station enters, create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token for each multicolored permanent you control. And then the station thing works like this. You can station it by tapping another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft, station only as a sorcery. It's an artifact creature at 12 plus. And once you do achieve 12 plus counters on this thing, it is a 7/15 with flying. Whenever the Infinite Guideline Station attacks, draw a card for each multicolored permanent you control.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that's a lot.
If you'll recall, when we reviewed, we were kind of having a discussion about this station ability.
Yeah.
This particular card, I think, set my expectations of how consequential that mechanic would be. Because I think this is probably one of the better ways to station, right? In this case, tap another creature to put a charge counter on. I think some of the station things were different, if I recall.
Yeah.
The functions of that mechanic were different with different cards. And so if people will also recall, this set did a little bit of rules changing for commander players as well. Because cards like this and vehicles typically were not legal as legends, but that set brought about the rules change to allow for things like the Infinite Guideline Station, as long as it was legendary, to be a legal commander.
Yeah, that was a shift.
Yeah, a bit of a change, right? Which brought in a good number of vehicles that now became legal. So T Coats says that
this is a good number of vehicles that all became Parahelion 2 decks.
Right,
yep.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
That is exactly it. So the theme that T Coats has here is big freaking robot, as in the whole point of the deck is to build a Megazord.
Okay.
Stacking robots together to form a bigger one.
Weird.
So one of the things that I want to call attention to is that something like the Infinite Guideline Station, as you read it off, Andy, and observed, there's a lot of fucking text here. And it's a 5-color deck. So what do you dedicate yourself to with a deck like this, right? Because you could be like, oh yeah, whenever it enters, create a tapped 2/2 colorless artifact robot creature token for each multicolored permanent you control. So do you do a multicolor permanent blink deck so you can get a bunch of extra robot tokens? If you do that, it then becomes a little bit difficult to station this thing and turn it into the big fucking flying creature that says whenever it attacks, draw a card for each multicolored permanent you control. T-Code's approach is, as implied by the idea of doing some Megazord thing, is to kind of use a lot of reconfigure spells, which I found to be an interesting take for a deck like this.
Yeah. When you can't stay on theme with a mutate.
Yeah, right.
We'll do this. Okay.
Let's go ahead and do that, right? So the reason you might consider the reconfigure approach is because they are creatures. So let's just go to the top of the list of the creatures thing here. So we have like the acquisition octopus.
Yep.
It's 2 and a blue for an artifact creature equipment octopus. It's a 2/2 and it says when it or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Yeah.
You can pay the reconfigure cost, which is 2 in this case, to attach it to target creature you control. Or you can actually unattach, unlike equipment, right? You can pay that to just turn it back into a creature. That has to be done at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
So this kind of gives you the function of having some creatures available to you to play around with, but when you manage to crew up, because remember, or to station your infinite guideline station, which remember, tap another creature you control to put the charge counter on.
Okay.
So these reconfigures are kind of a pretty nice thing. Like they're creatures that you can tap in order to get yourself those counters you need. But then once you've got it fucking ready as a big 7/15 flyer,
right,
you can reconfigure these fuckers onto your commander. Not necessarily giving us a lot of multicolor by doing that. So, read into the theme for what it is, right?
Right. We're trying to stay on the theme with this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go through some of these reconfigures because there's a good chunk of them in this creatures category. So like if we go down the list, you've got the Arm Guard Familiar.
Yeah.
1 in a blue. This one has ward 2 and the equipped creature or itself gets +2/+1 and has ward 2.
Nice.
So yeah, the reconfigure's 4. It's a common, so it's a little pricier to utilize that one, put it to use. The Bronze Plate Boar, 2 in a red. The equipped creature gets +3/+2 and has trample, or it is a 3/2.
Reconfigure is 5, dude. Whoa.
It's reconfigure is 5. So some of these common ones are a little bit steep to put to use, right?
Right.
The Chain Flail Centipede.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's reconfigure is 2. It's a 2/2. So whenever it or the equipped creature attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
Okay.
So kind of a nice little attack trigger, which you remember, we're going to put that on a 7/15.
This is the robots jumping into robots into jumping into robots. Combine.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Combine. Right? Yeah.
One of the more prominent reconfigures that people are going to be familiar with is the Kamainu Battle Armor.
Yeah.
So
it's a good one for sure.
2 in a red for an equipment dog. It's a 2/2, has menace. The equipped creature would get +2/+2 and have menace. Or whenever the Kamainu Battle Armor or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, goad each creature that player controls.
Yeah, dude. That is there's not many ways to do that repeatedly from a permanent, and this is one of them.
Yeah, and if you can strap it to a commander that's now a 9/17 by virtue of this card alone, one of the weaknesses to commander damage things can be blockers, especially if you're reconfiguring all the creatures you did have into your commander.
Yeah.
Its reconfigure cost is 4.
Okay.
So, but for that effect, I would say it might be worth it. Just might be worth it. Leech Gauntlet, 1 in a black. Equipped creature has lifelink, or it is a 2/2 with lifelink. Lion Sash is another prominent one that we see just kind of generally played in the format. 1 in a white for an equipment cat. It's a 1/1. It does have this activation. If you can pay a white, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. So pretty nice.
Another good one.
I feel like we recently saw the lizard blades utilized. Am I hallucinating that?
They're a popular one. It's, I think, probably some of the closest double strike or lowest double strike equipment you can get mana value wise.
Yeah, so 1 and a red, and then the reconfigure is 2. So total of 4 for that cycle of the equipped creature gets double strike. It itself is a 1/1 with double strike.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there's some other ones that are worth like drawing attention to here. Because like I mentioned, there's, you know, like T-Coats is sticking to the theme here pretty well. Oh, this is one we talked about recently. I'll just draw attention to it again as the Tanuki Transplanter. I think I brought this up in... Gosh,
right. I remember we talked about this in an episode.
Yeah, we talked about this recently. So it's 3 and a green for an equipment dog. It's a 2/4. Its reconfigure is 3. And it says whenever the Tanuki Transplanter or equipped creature attacks, add an amount of green equal to its power until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end.
Yeah, wild.
If you can reconfigure this onto your 7/15, that's a healthy chunk of mana.
It's a boon.
Reminder, the reality chip is another pretty prominent reconfigure piece of equipment. So this is an equipment jellyfish, 1 and a blue, reconfigures 2 and a blue. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. As long as the reality chip is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library.
Okay.
You may also notice that there's a Chimera cycle in here as well.
Yeah, I did see this. What's the story here?
Yeah, so let me see. I think T-Coats wrote something about this, so let me see if I can reference that.
A +2/+2 counter. Has that been errata? Didn't they get rid of it?
That actually is worth looking to see if there's 2 +1/+1 counters.
Yeah,
because
if you can
remove a +2/+2 counter, that would be pretty handy as an opponent.
I think it really is a +2/+2 counter.
But also if you can proliferate it, that's a pretty handy counter to proliferate as well.
It gains flying, and then in parentheses, this effect lasts indefinitely.
So one of the things you're right. So one of the things T-Coats just mentioned that there's a cycle of, you know, if you can pull all of them off, because it does say, like you mentioned with the Tin Wing Chimera, it's a +2/+2 counter. And the target Chimera and that Chimera gain flying permanently.
Yeah.
Right. So you can kind of move that along. You have to sacrifice these in order to pull it off. There's the Brass Talon Chimera. It's 4 mana. This one would give first strike permanently.
Okay.
And a +2/+2 counter. Then there's the Iron Heart Chimera. It has vigilance. I think that's probably errated on there, I'm guessing.
What's hilarious, I think, is there is a multicolored chimera in this game that has like bestow or something.
I think there's a 5-colored chimera, right?
Yeah. And I thought it had bestow.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's adjacent to reconfigure,
no,
right?
Not to Tyler. It ain't.
It's not a fucking robot.
It's got to be a robot.
It's got to be the robot. That one does the +2/+2 counter, and again, vigilance, I'm guessing. Is
it's a manticore. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the chromanticore.
Then there's the Lead Belly Chimera. That one would give trample permanently. So there's another fun little sub-theme of, again, we want to do the kind of Megazord thing. So you can kind of sack.
Yeah.
You can do the station thing, or you can do the Chimera like sub game if you want to do that with what T-Coats has pieced together for us here. I will say something that I like in here as well is that there's a clutch of vehicles that are maybe worth drawing some attention to. You know, there's this Fallout one with the Brotherhood Vertibird.
Yeah.
So it's 3 mana to cast. It would have flying, and its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. Obviously, the deck is pretty heavily artifacts. So
yes.
Crew 2. The reason I bring up, I guess I want to bring attention to this selection of vehicles is I think this is something that you've talked about on the podcast repeatedly is it's nice if you can build decks that have a backup plan.
Yeah.
That like you don't have to rely on having the infinite guideline station, right? Like you could utilize the Brotherhood Vertibird with all these reconfigures, I mean, I think you may check me on the rules. You may have to reconfigure each time because it ceases to be a creature.
Yeah, it would.
Right. But you at least have some options there, right? And then there's some other utility ones like the Cultivator's Caravan, which is a mana rock, but it's a 5/5 for crewing 3, right? Another one that's from the set is another spacecraft. This is the In-Spirit flagship vessel. So you're paying Jeskai for this. It's a 5/5 if it becomes a creature. So the station is to tap another creature, put charge counters on it. You got to get up to 8 for it to become the flying. Other artifacts you control have hexproof and indestructible, which good for this deck. And then if you get 1 counter on it, it's at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put your choice of a +1/+1 counter or 2 charge counters on up to 1 target artifact.
Jeez.
Using some other spacecraft, so like the Lumen class frigates here, if you get it up to the 12 counters, it's a flying lifelink 3/5. But if you just get 2, other creatures get +1/+1.
And it stays a vehicle or stays the way. It's not a creature yet. It just kind of is an anthem in the background.
Yeah, kind of a background anthem.
Okay.
Shorakai's here if you want to get back on the vehicle train a little bit. You know, getting yourself some pilots and doing whatever nonsense Shorakai can do. The Salvation Engine, 4 and a white for a vehicle. It's a 6/10. It's crew 6 to get that fucker up though.
Jeez.
Other artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. And then whenever this vehicle attacks, return up to 1 target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah, I think we saw Cody doing work with this one.
Pretty solid, right? Because he's got a Shorakai deck.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. The Falcon airship restored, 2 and a black, 4/3. It's a flying vehicle. So you got to crew 2 to get it up as a creature.
Okay.
Whenever the Falcon deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Weird. Okay.
And you could do this activation of 4 and a black, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tap.
Yeah, after you've done the thing.
So keep doing the thing. One card that T-Coats called attention to was the Luxior Giada's Gift.
Okay.
So single mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Remember that those station, those are charge counters.
Yeah.
So
when a Civic Saber ain't enough.
Yeah. So remember with those stations, with that particular station to get it as a creature, it's got to have over 12.
Yeah.
Or up to 12 or over. So 7 plus at least 12 when you're there, you can push yourself towards the 1-hit clock. And then it says equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. So
what is that?
You really, that part's irrelevant here. You could, because it has an ability, you can equip it to a planeswalker. Right. So if you've got planeswalkers that you're interested in utilizing.
But doesn't it make it a creature?
Well, I don't think you could equip it because it has either equip to a creature or equip.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So it needs to be a creature first. You're totally right.
Yeah. I went through the same thought process. I was like, so can I equip it? Oh wait, no, I can't. It specifically defines, I think standardly like equip means equip creature.
Yeah. I think you're totally right.
And then equip planeswalker is noted here. There's an ability there. Those are the highlights of the deck. I mean, you see the Megazord thing going on, stacking up robots together to form a bigger one is how T-Coats put that. Any thoughts, reactions to this?
It is a painfully T-Coats list. I'll give you that one. Because I'm like, okay, so where's the Pure Steel Paladin?
Yeah.
The stuff that would just really kind of connect it, like be the connective tissue for this deck. But as we can expect from our dear friend, there really is a theme and we're sticking to it. I wonder if an exception could be made in this list for battlefield improvisation because it's not a creature. I mean, it's just an instant, right? It's 1 and a white. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If that creature is attacking, you may attach any number of equipment you control to it.
Oh.
So it's a way just to zip everything.
And to remember, those reconfigures, they are equipment as well.
Yeah, just the reconfigure costs, I just think, are really high. So as we're kind of, because I'm thinking it like this, right? You cast a reconfigure, it never gets configured. Another one. And then eventually when you get your mana, you get your station out, and you probably have a good number of these reconfigures ready to go to power it on, put it online.
Yeah.
So it's finally online. It's now a creature, but now there's really no help to maneuver the reconfigures over.
That's a good point.
Where, okay, well, now it's online. Now I'm going to move into combat, battlefield improvisation. All this stuff shifts over, So maybe just a thought. I don't know.
That is I like that. That's one worth taking on. T-coats, should you want to add to your theme here? I will say one, because you said this is very T-coats-esque, like pick a theme. I will say, if anyone is thinking about trying to do a 5-color deck, to me, themes allow you to attach some discipline to doing that.
True.
You get really fucking dragged all over the place when you go to 4 and 5 colors, even 3 colors sometimes, depending on what you're up to. You can really get yourself dragged all over with the options. And I like that this just...
And really, like, what does this look like the other way around, right? Like, it would just be the who's who
exactly
of the best multicolored permanents
exactly
in all of the Magic, because it's all of the colors. Like this one was really open. Like, they have the 5C slop legends that we kind of get. I should stop saying the word slop. I'm kind of over it. People overuse it all of a sudden. But the one that was like, hey, we care about doors or whatever they were, rooms.
Right. We
care about elementals. That was pretty cracked and probably a little too open-ended already.
Right.
So
yeah,
this one's really up there. Multicolored permanents, fucking whatever.
Just put them in, guys. Put them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Niv Mizzet where it's like, it's got to be exactly 2 colors or something. I don't know.
Oh, sure.
Whatever.
Sure. Which, like feels restrictive enough, but when you actually start thinking about it with all 5 colors available to you. Yeah.
Well, I guess my other thing is like, there's nothing stopping you from, like,
yeah.
Right. Like, oh, well, it's my 5 color or my 2 color, whatever matters deck with Niv Mizzet, but there's nothing stopping you from putting fucking Smothering Tide on the deck.
Exactly.
And like, you make these concessions to yourself, and so this one's like, I'm 5 color, and here's my really hard 5 color stuff, and I think what's cool is that, like, you can get excited for things like the Omega Heartless Evolution, because it hits both sides of the thing, or Mishra claimed by Gix, like, so you can get excited for the thing.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah. Okay, that was that's it. Calling all Megazords.
Calling all Megazords.
What's the next one?
So, let's talk a little bit about Spider-Man.
Okay.
We had 0 deck submissions for Spider-Man.
Yeah, we didn't review that set because our Patreonage population didn't want to. So we kind of been taking the stance of, if it's a Universes Beyond release, when we're talking about set reviews, we'll put it to a vote. We had a lot coming up this year, so we just kind of got that out of the way right at the beginning. Like, hey, here's what we know is coming down the pipe. Which of these should we be preparing for? And
which Spider-Man happened before we did that vote, so we did it live
by its own thing. Yeah. So people were just kind of like, nah, man, and that's that. However, for the Before You Go episodes, we're not really boxing those off.
We'll come look at them.
So.
But you guys didn't want it. So. Which I thought it might be worth just holding a little space for making that note of like, hey, we're not going to review every set. We're leaving that in your hands as the listeners, as the Patreon supporting listeners, to decide for us if you want coverage of those in a review way. In this case, we made it open. I know that this set was a bit of a lightning rod in terms of community conversation. We tend to not wade into that pool. But I do acknowledge that there was some stuff going on. There was some shade thrown at content creators. And I just think, to me, what I kind of want to hold on to is, I'm kind of looking at, I don't know. I kind of had a little go off on it on the Hero's Blade vibe check a little bit. Like, I'm not opposed to Wizards of the Coast having their Universes Beyond sets, especially if they're going to keep feeding us plenty of other sets that are in universe. But that being said, I think the difference between this and like Final Fantasy and, you know, Lord of the Rings demonstrates that there's a needle they have to thread, which is the art direction has to be a believable fit. The set design has to be quality. And it also seems to me that the IP needs to have a little bit of strength to it as well. You know, like those things kind of need to be threaded for it to seem to succeed as a success. And when I say believable art direction, like Final Fantasy doesn't necessarily look like classic Magic cards, but like their art direction is believable, translating what Final Fantasy is to a Magic card, right? I don't know if you have thoughts, but I think Spider-Man Manifest.
Have we done it before you go for Final Fantasy? Did we do that?
So
already?
we did a lore episode with Lenny is what we did. Oh, did we do it before you go?
Yeah, where does it fit?
I think it was in our last one.
Okay. Because I feel like it would just completely, if it's, our meta is completely overrun with Final Fantasy
If I recall,
cards.
we had a number of them. It is hands down an incredibly popular set.
And it was a good one. Like just objectively, like a really cool set design, lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, no Spider-Man decks, no comment.
You're like, I've talked about it enough.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it again.
There's my commentary. Let's move on to another Universes Beyond set that our listeners quite liked.
Okay.
And that's Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah. Which ones do we have here?
So I've got 6 decks. Here's how I'm going to handle this because
the
bulk of what we had submitted for this episode were Avatar: Last Airbender decks.
Right.
We had one person who submitted a deck who hasn't had one featured on the podcast before. So we'll feature theirs. I randomized out of the other 5 a selection, but we will do a drive-by glance at the other 4 because I think, you know, like I said, we didn't get as many decks as we usually get. So let's just take a peek. So first up is Cole, aka the Bloodrick guy.
Let's sneak a peek, Matt.
Who's got Firelord Zuko for us.
Firelord Zuko. I believe this is the Mardu.
That is the Mardu one. The human noble ally. Yeah.
Okay, let me pull up the list. I'm like weaving through the document.
Yeah.
I'm in the Mox field. Where do I go in Mox field? Okay, here we go. So Firelord Zuko is a red, a white, and a black for a 2/4 legendary creature, human noble ally. Firebending X, where X is Firelord Zuko's power. Whenever this creature attacks, add X red. This mana lasts until end of combat. And then there's more, of course. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, and whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control.
It's an interesting legend, right?
Yeah.
I will say this, and I'll get into Cole's notes here in just a second, but as I was exploring Cole's list, I kept having these moments where I was like, why the fuck is this card here? And then being like, oh, Firelord Zuko says this.
Why the fuck is this card hit?
Yeah, like it's the gift that kind of keeps on giving.
Like Spike Shot Elder. Why the fuck is this card here?
Yeah, I just kept kind of being like, why are you doing this? Are you misunderstanding this legend,
no,
Cole?
You are.
No, I am misunderstanding this legend.
Okay.
Cole had the feel of it. And I think Cole, I will say as just kind of a preview, I think Cole's got some good like dabbling with the different elements of what's going on in this deck list. So Cole writes, using Zuko's increasing firebending mana to have instant speed answers during combat to clear the way for the beatdown. That's kind of the intent here. So the Githzerai monk, Mirror Entity, Tilonali Summoner, and Erois God of Victory are examples of having an explosive and evasive board state. So let's look at a couple of those cards. The Mirror Entity, right off the bat, we can name. You can just sink mana into its X
so
cost.
all of your fire lording just gets emptied into that.
All the creatures become XX in their size. And so you can just sink into that.
He's like, yeah. And then the mirror entity's like, big. My chrome belly.
It's true, right? It kind of just do you have the Githzerai monk? I can see if I can find it if you don't have
I've
it
got
readily available.
Githzerai monk, 4 and a white for a 3/2. It has flash, it has flying, and it has by the way, it's a Gith monk if anybody cares. It has flash, it has flying, and it has psychic defense. When Githzerai monk enters the battlefield, tap all creatures you don't control.
Ooh. Okay. So again,
it's good defensively, and then in this case, it's good offensively.
Yeah,
you move into combat, you get the fire, and you're like, yeah, and then it's like Githzerai monk, and then everybody goes, and gets tapped down. My chrome belly.
Eroa's got a victory, of course. I think gives all the creatures menace, if I recall, and makes it so they don't take combat damage.
Yeah, creatures you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures is the old language.
Yeah.
Prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. It's a, Dolmen Gate plus some stuff a little bit. Yeah.
And then the last one that he mentions is that Tilanali summoner that I think is kind of one of the more combat relevant ones.
So this is 1 in a red for a creature human shaman. It has Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. It's a 1/1, but whenever Tilanali's summoner attacks, you may pay X and a red. If you do, create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens that are tapped and attacking at the beginning of the next end step. Exile those tokens unless you have the city's blessing.
Yeah, which is
another mana sink.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think some of these where you've got these mana sinks are great. And then, like we can go look at,
here's my weak ass going, where's 8.5 tails?
Oh, you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah. And then 8.5 tails is like, yeah.
So like, if we go look at some of his instance, like there's a few things that are kind of these X spell type things, a la like Duelist Flame. So it's X red until end of turn. Target blocked creature you control gets +X/+O and gains trample whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. So, like stuff like that, I think is pretty solid. Electro Dominance can be another one where it's instant speed. Again, X red. It deals X damage to any target, and you may cast a spell with mana value X or less from your hand.
I love Electro Dominance.
It's a really fun card.
It is such a fucking good card to cheat things into play.
Cheat things even in that shouldn't be, it's like the timing isn't right for them, right? Like you're breaking timing.
You can just jam a lot of stuff that normally people, and like, what do they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Love that card.
Yeah, Endblaze Epiphany is another one of these like X spells, right? So X and a red, it deals X damage to target creature where that creature, when that creature dies this turn, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to its power, then choose a card exiled this way until the end of your turn. Next turn, you can play that card. So a little card advantage off
Brad
of
was
removal.
trying to make the case that this is a staple, like a red staple. Brad
feels,
uses that word too much.
But it's pretty fucking good.
He really likes Endblaze Epiphany a lot.
Yeah. Then there's other ones like Secure the Waste that you can cast at instant speed to just burp out a bunch of warriors from your firebending mana, right? So there's some of those that I really like. That I like this idea that one, like the mere entity type stuff that Cole's running with, or these instant speed, especially these instant speed X spells that you can run into. Or there's other stuff like he's got this mana sinks category with stuff like Draconic Destiny.
Mm-hmm. So
this is an aura that says the enchanted creature basically gets fire breathing, right? It's a dragon in addition to its other types. And then when the enchanted creature dies, Draconic Destiny goes back to your hand, right? So those are pretty fun.
Okay.
Right? Like I like that kind of stuff. And fire breathing's pretty solid. Or you could even do like the Realm Scorcher Hellkite that's here. So this is a dragon that's got flying and haste. It's 4/6, but it has, you can pay 1 and a red, and it deals 1 damage to any target.
Okay.
So you don't even have to just do
Yeah.
classic fire breathing. You can just be like, I'm directly doing damage to your face.
Uh-huh.
I like that. There's some other little tricky dick synergies that Cole found. The one that caught my eye, and I was kind of like, what the fuck?
Okay.
Is the Obsidat Ghost Council.
Oh, because the exile a bit, right?
Yeah, so it's 1 white, white, black, black for Spirit Advisor. It enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 2, and you gain 2. But it says at the beginning of your end step, you may exile Obsidat. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next upkeep, it gains haste. And I was like, what? But one of the modes one of the things that can get Firelord Zuko counters is not just casting a spell from
exile.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not just casting from exile, but a permanent entering from exile.
So would Norin work?
I think Norin would. Right?
Doesn't Norin coward out and run away?
You should collect a lot of counters on Firelord Zuko with Norin.
Where is he?
Where the fuck is he? Let's get your hands on it, Cole. Get your hands on it. There's some other blink spells in here, like I think Ghostly Flickers in here.
You know that's where you'd be going. If you build Firelord Zuko,
fucking know it, dude.
What this is just like an exercise in temperance. It's like what part matters to us, I think.
It really does.
And I think what we're seeing is like, here's the smattering of probably the best of each or something.
Yeah.
If Kyle were to do this deck,
if I were doing it
would be Mardu Flicker, and Zuko's just getting bigger and bigger. And I think the mana sinks are just this. I think
the mana
that's
sinks
the thing
are
I'd
great.
be all about. Yeah, I want those mana sinks.
Those are hot to try because you need a place to put that mana. If you're going to get them big, you need a place for the mana to go. If I'm being honest with you, Andy.
What?
Because I have an Orzhov Flicker deck at the moment.
What's stopping me from getting a Mardu Flicker deck?
And the only thing that's stopping me is we're not playing with these cards at the moment. So
contracts.
There are agreements and contracts, but if said contracts were
to expire
or be amended,
no amendments.
I feel like I know where my eye would be.
Darth Vader does when like Lando tries to amend something. No amendments, but then he alters the deal.
Right, no amendments except for mine. I'm making an amendment. All right, that is Firelord Zuko from Cole. There's one more thing I wanted to bring up. Because we did bring up a couple more things. We did bring up mana sinks. One that I think you would like that's in this deck is
listening.
The Wand of Wonder.
Yes, your guy loves it.
Yeah.
Your guy loves it.
Yeah.
It's a good it's a great mana sink. It's a great mana sink.
Because it kind of gets you it gets you some good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if dear listener, you're not familiar with this, it's an artifact. It's 3 and a red for an artifact. You can activate it for 4 tap, roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card, then shuffles the rest into their library. You may cast up to X instant and or sorcery spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost.
Yeah.
If you roll a 1 to 9,
one of them.
It's just 1. If it's 10 to 19, 2.
Jeez.
If you get that 20, if you hit it, you get 3.
Yeah, and often you'll hit board wipes and stuff like that, and be like, "I'll just leave it in exile." Which is a win from the game if you care to do that.
Yeah,
yeah.
The last one that Cole did bring up was the Vorpal Sword.
Yes,
so this is a black mana for an artifact equipment. The equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has Death Touch.
Oh, but the firebending can pay into that a little bit, huh?
But yeah, there's an activation of 5 black until end of turn. Vorpal Sword gains whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player. That player loses the game. Well, suddenly, if you've got a bunch of firebending mana, it's significantly easier to pull off that activation. So kind of a fun little niche. Somebody loses. It's hard to pull those types of win conditions off, but that's a fun one here that Cole slotted in. All right. We're going to stay in the Fire Nation, moving over to Jeffrey, aka Jeffrey.
Okay.
With Avatar Roku Firebender.
Yeah, I think I've been spooping on this list a couple times.
It's pretty hot to
I
trot.
follow them on Architect. So now I can navigate this website pretty easy. Hang on, I know what to do.
Yeah, that's right. You're like, I'm familiar with this.
Hang on, I know what to do. All right. It's Avatar Roku Firebender 3, a red for a 6/6 human avatar. Whenever a player attacks, add 6 red until end of combat. You don't lose mana as steps end. Whenever a player attacks. Isn't that crazy?
It is wild. Isn't it a wild ability?
Yeah, just give me that 6. And then, since mana sinks are of interest for such a thing, you get one strapped to this guy. It's 3 of the red. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn.
So you can super incentivize other people to attack if they go, right?
It's +6.
Yeah.
Or this one's +3, this one's +3.
Yeah,
my guy's plus.
Do you like Duelist Heritage?
6, so it's a 12/6.
Let me introduce you to Avatar Roku Firebender.
Mercifully, this dude is mono red.
Yeah, because you can't get the fucking
mercifully.
Okay, I'm gonna lean on you a bit for this one. I've got some talking points.
Don't talk to me, dude. This
Jeffrey.
Is mono. I'm terrible. Mono
but
red.
So here's what Jeffrey says. Jeffrey says this is inspired by Andy's Commander Damage series.
Oh.
Roku is a purpose-built duelist deck that attempts to answer the question, is there viability in a duelist commander that solves for mana instead of cards?
Got it.
Jeffrey says, spoiler, yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of candor in what Jeffrey shared in terms of like, this deck is relying heavily on the commander existing. And
well, yeah, I mean, like, what do you do with something like that in the zone? Like,
yeah. And so there's a lean in here. So I will draw attention to the fact that like he's got the counter spells that exist in red. So a lot of these are like, I got to counter target blue spell. Like I'm doing the blue hate because if it happens to be a blue spell that's trying to come at Avatar Roku, I will counter it.
Okay.
There's also the protection type stuff. That you can fucking find, right? Like the Eldritch immunity, target creature you control gains protection from each color until end of turn. So
wild.
Okay, if somebody's going to use targeted removal, where there is an overload with that if you want to use it, but like Sanctuary Smasher, when you cycle it, which its cycling cost is 2 and a red, put a first strike counter on target creature you control. I don't see how that's applicable to protection. What am I missing there?
Maybe if they're attacking into you, they don't really realize that like they're going to lose their guy.
Okay.
Because
that's right. Protection for self could be part of
like
this.
It's just going to slap anything down that isn't in the air.
Smoke bomb. All creatures have shroud, and it has flash, so you can just flash that in. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice smoke bomb. So that's a one-time thing.
And then it makes right? Doesn't it make him unblockable?
Yeah, so then when you do, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn.
It's fucking perfect.
Which will do this like mega fire breathe, like Avatar level fire breathing into that attack.
He's like, yeah! And they're like, as you're taking 12 from this thing.
There's also 9 redirect spells in this deck.
As is Red's only way.
They're right.
Including Not of This World, dude, is in here. Love this.
Yeah, we're fucking doing it, dude. So, like Jeffrey's point is like, we're going to try and encourage other people, as is the duelist type thing. Like, I'm going to hold my mana up mostly, and other people, by virtue of attacking, will generate mana for me. So, that's what we're going to fucking do is kind of sit on that back foot a little bit, look for the right moment. So let me go through a few more of the notes that Jeffrey provides. So the deck is designed to mimic a draw-go strategy insofar as mono red is able.
Yeah, I'm there.
So as such, I eschew front-footed effects like goad. So that might be something you might consider, but goad tends to produce some ire, and you got to be a little more front-footed with that. I can see that. The combination of a possible +6/+0 to a creature sent elsewhere, coupled with the fear of gifting me 6 mana to deal with anything threatening my life total, is enough for my opponents to pause before declaring attacks. When they do swing my way, I have everything from show-stopping surprise in that removal category to act of aggression to glorious end. Those are found in the redirect category. So winning with Roku requires either control of the board until Roku can beat my opponent to death in a 1v1 once, using Lost in Memories. Can you actually pull that card up for me? That's in the recursion category.
Lost in Memories, 1 and a red for an enchantment aura. It has flash, enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. Yeah, what a cool card.
So I think there are some extra combat spells available in the deck.
That'd do it.
So this would allow us to, we're going to resolve this 1v1 right now on this turn.
Yeah.
Right. Like, which I think is quite cool to do. Like, let me shoot it. You don't know I got it. If you're a savvy player, you expect it.
Okay.
But Jeffrey does say that there is no backup win con. Like, if you go look, there is dedication to Roku being around.
Yeah, dude.
So Roku's Achilles heel is his absolute dependence on keeping the commander on the field. 6 mana is a lot for mono red. 10 is probably just too much. Let's take a look at the deck. I want to give you some space to give your observations, but
all right.
One of my favorite cards that I just want to point out before you kind of get into your observations is Pyrrhemia being in here.
Right.
Because Roku, so Pyrrhemia needs other creatures to exist for it to stay afield.
Yeah.
Right? So you can pay a red, deal 1 damage to each creature or each player.
Yeah.
But because we have a 6/6, you can kind of just clear the board of anybody coming at you and still keep your commander, right? You can do 5 activations and still have your commander and everybody else gets punished. I punish thee. For kind of going at it. Tell me your observations. You put a ton of thought into that commander damage series. Does this kind of fit your thinking? Like, what do you think utilizing mono red with the mana?
Yeah. The only thing that kind of wigs me out, I think, with this list is anything that shoves things into exile, like Commune with Lava.
Yeah.
I'm never sure about stuff like this. This might just be my like risk aversion when you're playing reactively, which is red doesn't like to do this. Like red really, really doesn't want to be playing a reactive game. However, I think we've discovered a thread through it with, some of this like Eldrazi counter magic type style stuff and redirects and deflections I think is about as good as you're going to get in red. But when you like just shove things into exile, you expose your hand to the player and they can either wait it out and let it just stay in exile and shut down. Yeah. Or I don't know. I get kind of freaked out by that style of draw in a deck like this. Although with this amount of mana, this would be a huge rip. I mean, like the Commune with Lava would expose 4 cards?
Yeah.
During somebody else's combat. Things like you'll probably be okay. So it's just stuff like this. Like I don't love exile draw when I'm not just like trying to stay forward the whole time.
Yeah, that's a good point, right?
Like the whole time.
That can be a little bit difficult, but I will say on that draw category though, it feels like an experienced Magic player here in mono red. In my experience, you need more card draw than you template for in maybe other colors. Like just the type of red draw available to you just seems to be more thirsty.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about maybe I'm just hung up on mana sinks. Like there's a number of artifact draw mana sinks where you can just empty your mana into it. It's usually a very shitty rate.
Yeah, but if you're getting this much,
I don't know if that makes sense or not, because like you would be shields down during your turn to get this thing out. And then like there is the thing where people could just kind of like work around you and not try to attack because they kind of know they're going to flood you with mana or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other thing I'm wondering about is vigilance.
True.
It's not forthcoming in a color like this. So that is one hell of a deterrent to me. Or even just flying, right? Like that kind of works functionally the same way, but vigilance just allows us to like go out and then come back and then go out and come back and be able to block. And if they attack you, because like the Pyrrhemia is actually a genius card. Like that's a really good That's a really fucking good deterrent, dude.
It's so fucking good.
It's just that I would, for it, to my mind, that's probably one of the better plays in this deck of the minute they do anything, that it's just going to get wiped down. Like, you don't have to do it. You can do the Roku ability for their stuff. Like, I just love that.
Those type of naked combat deterrents are so fun. I managed to get one down the other night where I put out my Sunblast Angel with my Blink deck. And I'm like, come at me. I dare you.
I just lately, and this is just what you and I are playing lately, I value Vigilance highly.
Absolutely.
I always kind of like wake up in the middle of the night sweating, going, if I only had Vigilance, that game, the last game, it's not easy to get here, but like,
you need your grandpa to come back.
Short bow.
Talk to you about Vigilance.
And since we're okay with, Ninja Turtle cards, like, I'm sure there's stuff in, like, I think I saw one in the Marvel deck where it's like, it's a better short bow.
Yeah.
Like, it's vigilant and reach. So just a threat of like, at any minute this dude can get +6 because somebody attacked and it's vigilant.
I will say that's
going to keep people, they're going to have to work around it. They'll be like, okay, well, now I'll try to target. Okay, well, I'll bend that away. I
like that line, because if you want to be judicious about, because what I'm reading from Jeffrey is the ideal is I'm not going to attack until I'm 1v1. But what you're describing, I think, allows you to be a little more judicious of like, I have a moment here. I can get in there. Hiya.
Yeah. Or they block. If you don't have trample or flying, like they basically have to fucking block you. So you let them block, and then
it's a good point.
Right? You treat that like Roku removal.
I do think, because again, we've got a 6/6 that provides enough mana to get us to a 12/6.
Gosh, just this
in combat.
Nuts. Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to pull attention to is that Jeffrey has a Voltron category where you've got double strike here. So like Dictate of the Twin Gods, it deals double damage, right? Yeah. You can flash that in, or like Savage Beating, again, where we're getting the extra combats, which again, if you've got a 12/6,
that one's insane.
And with the extra combats where you can then go up to an 18/6, Great Train Heist, Ember Cleave here.
These are great.
We should be finishing the game off, like that player should be gone from one single combat, which I think is awesome in red, to just spring that on somebody. Like, you had 0 commander damage, now you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a great deck.
I'm a fan of what's here.
Yeah. Amendments to contracts.
If Andy could have the amended contract.
What's the next one?
So let's do some flyby looks at a few of these. I'm really interested in several of these, actually. So Keaton, aka Parakeet, had Katara.
Keaton.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Katara, Water Tribe's Hope.
So this is a 2, a white, a blue. Damn, dude, this is a lot of mana for these.
They're color intensive.
These characters. For a 3/3, it's a human, it's a warrior, it's an ally. It has vigilance. When Katara enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Then you can waterbend X. So to remind listener, because I don't think the reminder text is on this art that I'm seeing.
Oh yeah.
I believe it kind of works like Convoke meets Improvise. Like, you can use both the creatures and artifacts to do
so I actually copied the reminder into my notes, because I'm like, let's get that. So while you're paying its cost, you can tap your artifacts or creatures to help. Creatures you control have base power and toughness X until end of turn. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. So weirdly a similar effect than Roku, dude, a little bit, like where you've got a way to just make them a certain size. This one is they just become that base power. Yeah.
Pretty wild.
So this idea of Keaton's is, I think, I fanboy over Keaton stuff all the time. But so the idea here, the quote unquote idea here, is living weapons spam. And I just kind of love this because, again, with water bending, you can tap creatures and artifacts to pay the cost. So living weapons come in with a germ and it's an artifact, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you'll notice that, like, if you go take a look at look at Keaton's list, there's
Okay.
this game plan where there's a bunch of, there are the living weapons, but there's also a bunch of other living weapon-esque type things.
Yeah, like the heroes and the...
Yeah, like the barbed spike is an example, right? So it's 1 and a white. It enters a battlefield, and you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
There's a bunch of equipment that are like that. They don't necessarily come in with the germ that they're attached to, but functionally bring in a token with them. And so I am just in love with how well this abuses the water bending mechanic.
Yeah, because they can all contribute to this. This is funny.
Really cool. He did mention that Dana Roach came to a similar concept as well. And so Dana Roach probably has some tech out there for folks to look at if you want to kind of look at Keaton's list and go look at Dana's as well.
That seems very Dana, right? Like some backlogged mechanic that is now suddenly, like, no, I don't want to say viable, but there's some
it's got some
adjacent thing that this newer legend can kind of talk back to.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Next up, we've got Lenny, aka a Johnny's Gay Pride mate, that has the Unagi of Kyoshi Island. And this is, again, another kind of duelist Voltron deck with card draw matters that's going on here.
Yeah, this is
it's a fucked legend, right?
It kind of is. I think if there was an amendment to the contracts, this would be another reason that I would. Anyway, 5 mana for a 5/5. So yeah, 3 blue for a 5/5 legendary creature serpent. It has flash. It has ward waterbend 4. So I guess
tap your fucking
the removal customer can, I guess, tap their own stuff to try to push that through. That is a really high number, but they're
it is, right?
They're like, har, you can use your artifacts. That's ramp usually for people. Whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw 2 cards. Okay, pal.
Yeah. And if you go look at the list, Lenny is ensuring that you will draw your second card.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
With like the Howling Mine and the Anvil of Bogarden.
Lenny, why is mind over matter in this deck, dude? And why is this here? Do you need help?
And remember, it's on each turn. So like he's also using stuff like Prosperity, where you can do an X spell where each player, so you could do X as 2. Oh, all of you just drew your second card this turn? Looks like I draw 2, draw 2, draw 2. Oh, and the spell, draw 2. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty
good.
Wild.
Pretty good. Yeah, who needs Consphinx, right? Who needs the fucking game changer when you can put the Unagi in the command zone? There's a ton of protection cards in the deck. So speaking to that kind of duelist style, a lot of stuff to just kind of parry away people. You're not doing anything to me.
It's a serpent, so that's a type for all this like bounce shit too.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Exactly. It also, I think it exhibits some of the concepts we talked about in the recent putting Bumbleflower to Yard, where you are giving other people cards, but you're so accelerated in front of everybody else that it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys can have a few extra cards. I have so many and I have blue. Get fucked.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Chris, aka Tillwolf, that has Aang and Katara with kind of a tokens copies list.
Okay, yeah. This is another website I'm not familiar with. Let me pull this one up so I can get this one going. I have like so many tabs open now.
Oh, I know, right? And you're like, where is it?
I don't think this one's clicking in for me.
I'll read it off because I do have it. So it is 3 green, white, blue for a human avatar ally. It's a 5/5, and it reads that when Aang and Katara enter or attack, create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the number of tapped artifacts and or creatures you control. So like it's a pretty hot entrance trigger, right? Like it's 6 mana, but getting X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the number of tapped artifacts
you control. Yeah.
Pretty hot there in terms of like what's offered off that ETB. So there's some blink for some extra triggers off of that, which is pretty hot. And then there's Soul Sisters as well to kind of just, let's get a bunch of fucking life off of this.
Go away. Yeah.
If you go take a look at Chris's list, there's a ton of ramp, which is rightful because we've got a 6 mana value commander that this deck really wants to have in play. And then there's also some disruption to kind of make sure we keep the board stable.
Dude, the Soul Sisters like are starting to read to me of like this person's accumulating an additional turn.
It really is. And they're becoming, there was a long time we didn't ever see them in our play group for like, and they're just kind of splashed into some decks now these days.
It's just one of those things that like, you know, we've changed the environment that we play in so many times that some of it has gone ignored for a little longer. You know, like you could say life gain was something that we didn't value too much. I mean, I think we have episodes about like, yeah, you don't want to just gain life for life gain's sake. Like you want to convert it into draw and stuff, you know? Well, that's because the space we were operating from back then was, there was no restriction on tutors. There was no infinite combos were there.
Yeah.
Like you really don't want to just be like, okay, I'm at 60 life.
And I think the infinite combo thing is a big part of it, right? If you're in an environment without, it doesn't matter that you have 100 life if somebody's just going to combo.
Yeah.
Right? Like
you can't really obtain like infinite life, right? You have to stop gaining life and like give the turn to somebody else usually. Like it's usually like, you know.
Yeah, you can't be, well, in response to your infinite combo,
then I need to gain infinite life. Yeah. Or something. I don't know. But it's just, but in these days, dude, life gain is like such a freaking time boost. It gives you way too much time to play.
It is
when you should die.
Fucking working, right? When you should die. Yeah, it's worth splashing in. And a deck like this where you can have a push that gets you 20 extra life.
Yeah.
Like, and where it's blinking. And so it becomes this like exponential problem.
Mm-hmm.
That deck could get life totals and board states that are out of hand. The last one that we just kind of want to do a quick flyby of with Avatar Last Airbender is Bridget, aka just Bridget, with Lo and Lee, Royal Advisors.
So 2 black for a 3/3 for a legendary creature human advisor. Whenever an opponent discards a card or mills one or more cards, put a +1/+1 counter on each advisor you control. And then they have an activated ability of 2 of hybrid or blue or black. Target player mills 4 cards. Okay, dude.
So Bridget's another deck builder that I really enjoyed, like seeing what she does. This deck, when I started looking at it, because, you know, they mentioned like, we're just kind of stacking up advisors. I'm like, advisors? Mm-hmm. Who's stacking up fucking advisors?
Yeah.
Turns out there's a lot of pretty good advisors.
Yeah.
And
like persistent petitioners.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that, but there's just, you know, there's stuff that you don't even think about, you know, like, okay, this Avon Courier. So I've got this 1/1 flyer that now is getting stacked up with counters because it's a bird advisor. And it says when it attacks, choose a counter on a permanent you control, put a counter of that kind on target a permanent you control. If it doesn't have a counter of that kind on it. So like, I mean, a 1/1 for 2
Matrix
that's
is
flying.
An advisor. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And like, there's all kinds of them that I wasn't even thinking about. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is an advisor.
Duelist of the Mind's an advisor. Wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 2 things here. Like, one, the number of advisors that you can kind of like utilize. It's never a type that I would have thought, I'm going to check out that advisor deck list. But the other thing that it does is I think it lets cards like Ghoul Caller's Bell just kind of shine, right? Like, it's just 1 mana for an artifact tap. Each player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard.
And then you get the counters.
Now you get counters across all your fucking advisors.
Nice.
It lets stuff like that shine. And I really like when those low curve, seemingly low impact cards like a Ghoul Caller's Bell. I mean, Ghoul Caller's Bell has always been kind of interest for different archetypes. It's really good for like top deck manipulation type stuff, lantern control. It's really great. It's got its place, but this is another great spot for it to just kind of shine.
That is lantern control. Yeah. Yeah. This is one of those things where do you Yeah, I think we're doing the nice thing, staying off the discard, because the discard is still there.
Sure.
There's a little bit of it, but like this is mostly like let's do the mill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, and I'm curious your thought on this, Andy. This is to me an underestimated Anthem effect, right? Like it's always interesting looking at commanders that have some kind of Anthem effect, right? Like Kyler, the way he scales with humans is kind of bonkers, right?
Yes.
But this is pretty fucking good. Like Advisors is a smaller type.
Mm-hmm.
It's a smaller pool of cards, but that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the thing about Kyler is Kyler's gone, then okay.
Oh, wild. Unforgiving ones in here. Cool.
Yeah. There's some other just like good card picks that Bridget slotted into the deck that I think are worth taking a look at. You know, there's not this, it's not quite the T coats like this is my theme, I'm doing it. There's some good cards that Bridget put.
It's like it's a wizard, but we can see like, you know, so the Unforgiving one, it's not an advisor, but it's a spirit, but it just says whenever Unforgiving one attacks, return target creature card from with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of modified creatures you control. So it's like a Sun Titan style effect in Dimir.
Yeah. Pretty great.
Pretty sick.
I like it. I like that. So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of, I'll post all, I haven't mentioned this, but I will post all of these deck lists, including the flyby ones, in the list from the pod channel on the Discord. So if anybody wants to go take a look at those. And also I would encourage anybody whose decks were featured, like go use the, either discuss the podcast or reviewers mind dump to add additional thoughts.
We out of this set now. Where are we going next?
Yeah, so let's go to Lorwyn Eclipsed. So we had 2 deck submissions here, so we'll take a look at both of these.
What a set, dude!
Yeah,
Lorwyn
really
Eclipsed.
Cool, really cool, right? So the first one is Bless Me Anya, that has Grub, Storied Matriarch, that flips to Grub, Notorious Auntie.
I am going to be interested to see where this goes.
I know it, right? This is one where I'm like, I'm going to rely on Andy for this as well.
So Grub Storied Matriarch is 2 and a black for a 2/1 Goblin Warlock with Menace. Whenever this creature enters or transforms into Grub Storied Matriarch, return up to 1 target Goblin card from your graveyard to your hand. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay red. If you do, transform Grub. So then they turn into Grub Notorious Auntie. It's also a 2/1, but now it's a warrior, Goblin Warrior now. Menace. When Grub attacks, you may blight 1. So that's you put a -1/1 counter on something.
Yes.
Right? If you do, create a tapped and attacking token that's
and it's on a creature you control, by the way, the blight.
Yes.
Right?
Sorry. Yeah, if I didn't say that. Yeah, you put a -1/1 counter on a creature you control. If you do, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of the blighted creature, except it has at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this token. And then, at the beginning of the main phase thing, you can flip it back into the black Grub, the other side.
So what Bless Me Anya's doing here is, obviously we've got a Goblin Kindred going on in the deck. And then as they characterize it, token Crash Out Aristocrats.
Right.
So the 2 main win cons are kind of like where you can just kind of swarm and Anthem support, or kind of do like siege type stuff with the Aristocrats plan.
Okay.
So like, I have to say this is maybe demonstrating how like some of us as Magic players can have blind spots in how we think about and understand the game.
Yeah.
The idea of Crash Out Aristocrats, it's a verbiage that gets thrown around a lot by EDH players. And I just like never thought about, what do you fucking mean?
Okay.
Because if we're thinking about classic Aristocrats, we're talking about getting out creatures that there's some kind of value in those creatures dying. And usually you're building in, if you're doing like Orzhov classic Aristocrats, you're building in sack outlets. Whereas with Crash Out, it's just like, I'm just going to fucking throw these things at them and they're just at you block. And they're just going to fucking die, or I'm going to block with them.
And that's my sack
they're just going to
outlet.
die. Like I'm not building in sack outlets. Stuff's just going to die because I don't care about these creatures.
Stuff's just going to die. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And so this was a really good exercise for me to kind of look at this more in the face, because it's not a strategy that I've ever really been attracted to, of just like, I'm just going to throw shit at you anticipating it'll die, that you'll block it. And that's what I'm utilizing. It's just not a Kyle play style, you know?
Right. Everybody's got their temperament.
It's true. It's true. And I do feel like this list strongly embodies this. Also, I just want to point out, Bless Me Anya does, I think, a really strong job with the categories, the custom categories here. It's really clear what you're up to with this deck. So, for example, they mentioned the swarm, right? So like things that we're just going to get some of these goblin bodies out there, like Bogart Mischief, right? So we've got a Kindred Enchantment Goblin. When this enchantment enters, you blight 1. If you do, create 2 1/1 black and red goblin creature tokens.
Okay.
You know, Kranko Mob Boss is in here. Kranko 10th Street Kingpin, Bashalik Mons, all these ones that you like, the Siege Gang Lieutenant, the Sling Gang's Lieutenant, all these ones that are going to push out a bunch of tokens for us in the process of just playing. You know, and then there's some of the classic like goblin type rebirth type stuff, like the Goblin Cherugian, that's just 0, sacrifice a goblin to regenerate target creature, which will probably be another goblin.
Yeah, the Cherugian's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's some of the things that are just kind of staply ones like the Malika Rebirth or Patriarch's Bidding, which Patriarch's Bidding is always great with a typal deck like this, right?
Right.
The siege stuff that's brought up here as well, you know, so you recently actually brought up this card as a commander. I think this is the form of it. Garna, Blood Fist of Keld.
Yes.
So 1 black, red for a human berserker. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, Garna deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Yep.
So this is the crash out type stuff. Like this
basically exemplifies it. Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter what you do, how you interact. I'm a beneficiary if it gets through. I'm a beneficiary if it doesn't, whatever. Right. And so I think, anyways, really strong categories. I want to pause and praise that, not to like take other people down, but you know,
we like categories around here.
We fucking love categories around here. And these are strong ones. You're a goblin guy. I don't want to talk too much about goblins.
I don't know if I
You like
one.
The aesthetic of goblins.
I love the aesthetic of goblins.
Brad
plays
them.
Yeah, Brad actually plays them. I find that they have been, I don't want to say left behind compared to like dragons, like we'll say.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot left to do with them that I haven't seen. And I blame this probably on my brother, who like, he's just a fucking devourer when it comes to typal type stuff. Like he just dives down and just builds every like he just gets these crazy itches to just do it, you know. But
yeah,
it's just like one goblin deck is much like the next is kind of what I'm finding.
True.
One could say the same thing about elves, and I don't know, you could probably say that about a lot of them, but Brad actually made this legend and he did not like it. But again, Brad won't do stuff like, there isn't going to be a high society hunter in Brad's deck. It's a vampire. There isn't going to be, no matter how good Garna is. I mean, she could be the commander of the deck. Probably, you could make a case that she's a really good goblin commander. Her and her like other her cousin or whoever the Gruul chick is, you know,
right?
But he won't do that. He has to just stick to it. Like he will not do that like ever.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what was informing that whole thing. Cameron really likes this legend like a lot. Like I don't know if it's just his time playing MTG Arena or something. But Cam thinks this legend is really cool. I think Cam 2 built a list from this as well and loves it. So it's really weird that like of all the enthusiasts, like Brad just didn't like this one.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So
it is interesting.
I love how they look though. I love this little fucking guy. This was just a cool set. I really enjoyed. I just really cool.
So Bless Me Anya brings up a couple like of their favorite plays. So one of them would include the Skirk Fire Marshal. So this is 3 red for a Goblin Lord, protection from red. It's a 2/2. And it says tap 5 untapped goblins you control.
Yeah.
And it deals 10 damage to each creature and each player. So if you can get that swarm going, it fucking rocks.
Yeah, and it's pro red, so it survives its own fire. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, and then another one that they mentioned is waking up the Westvale Abbey to get Ormondal is just a fun little side quest for decks where you're producing a lot of creatures, right? So if you're not familiar with this land, you can tap for a colorless. You can also pay 5 and a life to create a white-black human cleric creature token. You probably aren't going to do that with this one, but you can pay 5 tap, sacrifice 5 creatures and transform it and untap it. And that gives you Ormondal, which is a legendary demon that has flying, lifelink, indestructible, and haste, and it is a 9/7.
Yeah, wild.
So pretty cool side quest if you're producing a lot of bodies and you don't fucking care about them dying.
Yeah. Goblins are without. I would say that they're probably right on zombies' tail of being like the aristocrat color or the aristocrat type.
Yeah,
they just die because that's just like how they're set up to work. So
it's true.
When you start attaching them to black, it becomes pretty obvious, like pretty quickly what you can do with them. You know, like, and then they give us a couple mass reanimation spells in black. I think there's a kindred one in here. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that Patriarch's Bidding is here, so it's...
sorry, there's another one that has Convoke.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because if you're boarded, your Convoke is hard to do, but...
True.
Goblins.
But still, goblins, man, they're fucking into it.
Yeah.
All right, our last one from this set that we're going to feature, because we just had the 2, is... I like this, so this is... I like what this happens. So this is Tristan, a.k.a. Destroyander, if you're looking for them in the Discord, with... Tristan, Callous Cultivator.
Another one that we had in our meta, yeah.
/ Tristan, Penitent Color. So this is another flip legend.
So Tristan, Callous Cultivator, they essentially do the same thing, but I'll read them all through. So it's 2 and a green for a 3/4 with Death Touch. Whenever this creature enters or it transforms into Tristan, Callous Cultivator, you mill 3 cards. Then if there's an elf card in your graveyard, you can pay 2 life. Or sorry, you gain 2 life. And then the... same is true, you hit the main phase, you can pay black, then it flips into Tristan Penitent Color, 3/4, Death Touch. This time you mill 3 cards, and if among them is a elf, you can exile that card from your graveyard, and each opponent loses 2 life.
So Tristan's not super focused on speaking directly to Tristan with this deck, if you go take a look at the list.
Okay. This is going to be really hard for you. Tristan is not...
Yeah, I mean, I can say Destroyander if that's more helpful. Use their Discord handle. But I'm like, I want to acknowledge that Tristan's doing Tristan, which we have. So let's move there. Anyway, so I'm going to read off some of their notes a little bit to kind of contextualize this. So I usually win by producing a huge board, draining opponents, or swinging with giants. Please refer to Graveyard Benefits category in the deck list if we're going to be looking at those. So the play pattern usually follows putting out Tristan, an extremely reliable Stitcher supply each turn, and other mill engines early to fill the yard as soon as possible. Then stay out of radars till I can make a move. The elf text is a nice addition, but it's just fluff that can usually be ignored.
Agreed.
Tristan also makes for a great shield with Death Touch, as I find my opponents really don't want to risk their important stuff dying.
Agreed again.
He adds a couple notes saying, yes, there's 35 lands. I found I wanted more non-lands in yards when milling, and it has worked for me.
Oh, don't we all, though?
This deck just fights through grave hate. If it gets removed, we keep trucking and fight on. No point fretting about whatever's done. Let's go take a look at, I think there's 3 main categories here in the deck list that are worth taking a look at to kind of understand what Destroyander's up to. So that would be the Graveyard Benefits that's mentioned in the list. And so, I mean, like, there's a variety of different things. There's the cards a la Brawn, that as long as it's in your graveyard and you control a forest, creatures you control have trample. Right. Love that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Then there's ones that things like Izoni, Thousand-Eyed, that can give us some pretty big benefits as well. So it has Undergrowth. When Izoni, Thousand-Eyed enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black and green insect token for each creature card in your graveyard.
Yeah.
It's a 2/3. It is 6 mana to cast, but that's a pretty strong benefit for getting it aboard. Let's look at just some other ones. Like there's stuff like the Grime Gorger, two black green for a menace horror. Whenever Grime Gorger attacks, exile up to one card of each card type from defending player's graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Grime Gorger for each card exiled this way. So you can get a big body that has some evasion, and you've got graveyard removal for your opponents as well. Sir Conrad's here.
Right.
Because we're going to be moving stuff in and out of graveyards, right? So
yeah, in the mill.
Let's go and doing the mill. So we may as well just start pinging people for
Cassage Cage Breakers. What a blast from the past.
Yeah, right. So this is an old school one from the OG Innistrad era, right?
Yep.
So 4 and a green for a human rogue. When the Cassage Cage Breakers attacks, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token that's tapped and attacking for each creature card in your graveyard. So if we're doing this mill type shit, pretty fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
There are some other mill cards. You'll notice there's a theme here, or a section for this as well. Stuff that's doing dredge, like the Stinkweed Imp.
Yep.
So when it deals combat damage, of course, you can to a creature, you can destroy that creature, but it has dredge 5.
So it just doesn't really go away.
Yeah, so it just does not go away. It's a 1/2, but like you're just gonna keep fucking
Dredge
doing things.
5, dude. What the hell?
Isn't that fucking big,
Yeah.
right? Dredge 5. If people aren't familiar with the dredge mechanic, basically you can put this card back into your hand if you would draw.
Yep.
Instead of doing the draw.
Just replaces your draw with a big self mill.
Then you mill the dredge number to your yard. Even stuff that's like the Nyx Weaver. I like this one. So it's 1 black green. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 cards from your library into your graveyard. Just a 2/3 nice blocker, right? Crawling Infestation enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep, you can mill 2. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere.
I was like, did you read that wrong? But no, yeah, there's Crawling Infestation and Crawling Sensation. Okay.
Yes. So I'll get to the other one, but you'll get a token for a creature landing in yard for a mill occurrence, right?
Yeah.
Then the Sensation, same cost, also enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Whenever one or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere for the first time each turn, put a 1/1 green insect creature token onto the battlefield. And then there's, of course, the big recursion, like stuff that's gotten milled. 14 cards in this category. Things kind of across the style. So you've got like Timeless Witness, or you've got one that I haven't seen in a while, the Dead Bridge Chant.
Yeah, dude.
So 4 black green, when it enters the battlefield, put the top 10 cards of your library into your graveyard. So it's going to do some mill for you. But it says at the beginning of your upkeep, choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield.
Barf.
Otherwise, put it in
so
your hand.
annoying with how full the yard could get, huh?
It's true. In a deck like this, right? And then Namesake, right? Tristan's Command is here. So 4 black green. It's a modal spell, modal kindred sorcery for elves. Choose 2, create a token that's a copy of target elf you control. Return 1 or 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Destroy target creature and enchantment, or a creature's target player control. Get +3/+3 till end of turn. Untap them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell you, like you mentioned, this commander's been used. Tell me your thoughts in terms of its effectiveness. You seem to agree with Tristan's assessment of Trisman.
It's a cool commander. Like, so Cameron's deck, I think, is... So this deck is definitely like a demonstration of quality, where we're looking for quality cards to then kind of like backlog and see the number of creatures that are in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Cam, I think, just kind of threw that out and was like, I want to go for quantity.
Yeah.
So his self-mill aggression is, I think, really high, but he also has just really unattractive blockers, you know? So like, yeah, the Stinkweed Imp, but you know, like even like Glissa Sunslayer, like we're just not really able to go at him at all. You have to be pretty wide to get around what he will
and you're
put
gonna
in front
lose
of you.
stuff.
And he's just, you know, filling up his yard. Like it's like a lot of graveyard focused decks with self-mill, but I really like Tristan. Especially for Cameron, because a while ago, this was maybe like 2 years ago, he was playing his Greasefang deck and he had gotten like a Mesmeric Orb down. And newer players don't love that card. You've noticed that mill is just something that like people they lose their minds over, to a certain point. I don't know where the tipping point is.
Yeah,
for
like there's a
people.
point you should panic when your deck starts getting pretty thin, but I'm always kind of like,
who knows?
Your deck is a good deck, right?
Isn't
like
it? Yeah.
You don't need those cards specifically.
Yeah. So Edis lost his shit at him for playing the Mesmeric
Edis
Orb.
hates mill.
Edis hates it. He just hates it. And I remember like at the end of this game, like Cameron was like, I wish there was just like a Mesmeric Orb just for me, where it's just, I'm the person who mills. That's it. That's the only reason it was really here was this Greasefang deck.
It's one of the best forms of mill. It just so happens to be for everyone.
But it's also a good way to fill your own yard. You know, like every time I think I've used it, that's where I'm at. And he kind of got that with this legend. Like it really is just 3 every turn, every turn. And so it starts stacking up pretty fast with like, oh, well, I'm going to do this Nyx Weaver. So now it's 5 and the scrawling sensation on top of that. So it goes up to 6 plus some additive triggers, So his deck is really tough and resilient, and it's got a velocity to it that I really like. The quality though is much lower. Like the card quality, Yeah,
like there's some bangers here, right, to utilize and
No, sorry, I'm speaking about Cameron's list.
That's what I'm saying. In contrast,
this here, the quality I think is higher, like creature to creature.
Yeah.
So it's just a really neat commander.
Yeah, to kind of put out there to close out Destroy Ender's deck here. Like one of the favorite plays they noted was, to speak to your thought about the quality difference. Like if you can reanimate the Lotlith Giant a couple times, which reads when it enters a battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target opponent for each creature card in your graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the velocity that you can self-mill with a deck like this, that number can be pretty big pretty easily. If your graveyard's not dealt with. And so that's a favorite play of theirs.
I'd have a hard time not being just super indulgent with everything must be a creature or close to it. Like I'm looking at some of these.
So to your point, there's 45 creatures,
which is high.
deck.
That's really high.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really high.
Yeah.
But that's right. I think that's the right move.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool deck. Let's close this out. This is a non-set legend that because of just the oddness of covering,
you had to do it.
The oddness of this, the oddness of covering a couple universes beyond lists, I'm going to indulge Jack, aka Bold Dog. There was some discussion in the Discord. I think some prodding and encouragement from the class to do this.
Okay.
So this is Jaws, Relentless Predator.
Jaws. Oh, all right. Pull it up. I can't get it open.
Okay. I'm Moxfield loading. So, which I will say, the movie poster style on this, I do think they hit. I just don't. I'm hopeful they're making a non-Jaws version of this because it's a cool card. So Jaws Relentless Predator is 3 red for a legendary creature shark. It has trample and haste. And whenever Jaws deals combat damage to a player, create that many blood tokens. Whenever a non-creature artifact is sacrificed or destroyed, Jaws deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Trample haste. How wild is that?
Trample haste. Pretty fucking crazy. So there's actually 2 lists. I'm just going to kind of focus on one.
Okay.
But Bold Dog provides us a couple ways of thinking about this commander.
All right.
So the first one that they're kind of focused on is more of the spell slinger tokens, burn, draw, go kind of a play.
Interesting.
There's obviously, he notes you could obviously do the whole sacrifice artifacts KCI way of playing. He provides a deck list for that you can go reference if you want to play just kind of that classic sacking artifact style. But this spell slinger one I think is worth kind of thinking about a little bit. So he says somewhere between the classic Mizzix's mastery blowout and a televised yet somehow unexpected crunch of commander damage from a colossal shark is kind of the aim with what we're doing here with this deck. I think the thing to me that I'm just so drawn to with this, and you can tell me if you agree with this, Andy,
Okay.
is just having a mono red commander that then allows you to just play every fucking version of all of the like unexpected windfalls and all of the seize the spoils that give you all of these treasures, and then you're just spell slinging your way through your deck, and your commander is just watching all of your actions that go along with it, right?
Just pinging everybody.
And you're just pinging everybody. And I think to me, there's just something so interesting about that. He did make these very thematic categories here. So we have like chum, which would include like big score and like flashback and all this kind of shit that's leaving you behind, or like flick a coin.
Yeah.
Right. Stuff that's just leaving you something to work with the commander. That's attracting the commander, I guess, with your chum. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some like bigger plays that go into the deck, like the thrash type stuff, where you're kind of like, we're going to pull people apart a little bit. And then kind of the explode type things. I like these things where you've got Mizzix's Mastery and Odra Axonel.
I'm there.
Stuff that's just going to really expand the amount of damage that you're going to do.
Yeah, he's going from 1 to 4 with this Odra.
Yeah, and then with the Mizzix's Mastery, like if you've spun through a bunch of those, fucking big score type cards, and now you just spin out
It's an incredible card.
a bunch of them with your Mizzix's Mastery.
Yeah, it will continue to be.
Yeah, an overloaded Mizzix's Mastery
Until
by the
they
way.
creep it somehow, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to overly indulge coloring outside the lines of what these episodes are intended to do, but Jack, I admire your boldness, aka Bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
In bringing up Jaws, Relentless Predator, and doing a Spellslinger version, which I think is cool. We're not just going the traditional, let's just sack out our artifacts in as many easy ways as possible.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple places that people were a little irritated that this wasn't a real dealio. I think I saw that they were going to try to get an in-universe version of this thing made, but I'm not sure if that's something that maybe I hallucinated. I don't know.
I do hope that that's the case, because it is a pretty cool legend.
There's a lot of hooks. Like there's draw hooks in red. There's discard hooks in red from the blood.
Yeah.
Obviously there's the Reckless Fireweaver style hooks. There's a lot that you could be doing here with this.
Yeah.
And then have that all kind of work independently of the commander. If you're smart, you probably should do that. Like
it's true.
Or not. And until then, I guess you can do Brawlin' and
it's true. There is Brawlin'.
Do some of that with Brawlin', I suppose, with the discard piece.
I did mention Odra Axonel, which was one of the ones that was brought up. I think, let's see, did they bring up, the Flame Fusillade or the Fusillade?
Yeah, that one's wild. All your permanents become a huge ping.
Yeah. So that's another one of their favorite plays coming out of that deck. All right. That's 4 sets and a bonus
secret layer
movie poster.
Bonus movie poster. How it happened, who the fuck knows? I
do think the art direction on the movie poster style is well executed. I just don't need that in my command zone per se.
It's hard to read.
It is actually hard to read.
Yeah,
right?
Their creative efforts with reading cards. Like,
yeah,
we've seen a couple like movie poster style ones come out of people's hands, and Brad's like, what does that say, dude? Like, what is that all that?
I put on my readers and I still can't fucking read it.
Or whatever that we had.
Oh, that one was kind of infuriating.
Can't fucking read this, dude. It's
that art of that Anduril was actually kind of
man.
Yeah, right. Like I need to go out and shake my fist at the sky.
Okay.
All right.
How do you feel about all that?
This was a peculiar one. Like I said, I think maybe the timing with summer a little bit, maybe the sets a little bit. I was surprised at only having 10 submissions, but it seems to me like people are really enjoying Avatar Last Airbender quite a bit. And rightfully so. I think there's, what we kind of, the ones we featured in the flyovers, those are some cool legends, some cool lists there. I'm a little surprised there wasn't more from Edge of Eternities. I feel like at least to me in my mind, I'm like, that was a pretty cool set, but maybe there's some uncanniness with the space feeling. I don't know. It's hard to put a finger on what maybe is behind getting traction on some sets over others.
I guess we'll see how many come out of the Star Trek set.
We shall see.
If there's only one, then maybe your theory's right.
We shall see.
It's going to be very uncanny for people.
I don't have a strong sense of how long Wizards has had for designing the Star Trek one.
Well, I mean, you and I kind of heard from a little bit of the horse's mouth about that, right? Like, so
yeah,
not a lot we could say about that.
Yeah, I'm like, when there's NDAs involved.
Yeah. So it's an interesting time to be here with, like just kind of combing through the lists, like all of these cards that I didn't know existed because it's just not something I can do with how our play group has decided to kind of like ignore these sets. But
yeah,
a lot of Ninja Turtle stuff that I'm looking at this and going like, wow, this is a good card. Like special move I saw in almost every one of the decks. I was like, every one of them is running this special move card.
Yep.
I don't know if that's just like the zeitgeist in our threads, because it's a bit of a garden, right? People spend all day in our Discord discussing decks, cards, single cards. Like it's a very active conversation, and obviously people harvest ideas from each other there. I mean, I do. I have whole deck lists that only exist because somebody mentioned it.
Yeah.
Mentioned the commander or even mentioned the idea in there. It's a good well of information, but it's an interesting space to kind of be in where I can't tell if it's a convergence of I'm getting older and I'm kind of trying to not become so hyper-focused on understanding every card that exists, or both is happening. It's just becoming impossible. I mean, 7 sets in a year is just...
The volume's massive.
It's huge. Like, I just don't know how to do that anymore, and not completely cave in on myself, Like, I don't know.
So it's a weird balance because like we mentioned kind of going into the year, I had the goal of just trying to brew a few lists from legends from every set, which does entice me to then look at cards from the set a little bit more. But even still, it's kind of a lot of work to do that, number one. And it's also made it so I'm not like building that much, which I anticipated going into this year. But
I think you're just more protective of your time when it comes to stuff like that.
That's also true.
Where I'm not. Like I don't hear about you brewing stuff very often and going, yeah, I'll never make this. Or this will work, but it's not for me. Like that doesn't come up a lot with you. Like every once in a while it does.
I mean, I am, like I've been doing my three decks per set. Like
well,
this year,
I mean is somebody throws out an idea and then you go after it.
Yeah.
Somebody reached out to me today through Discord about some mono red humans thing, and I just like got completely consumed by it, and knowing full well like this is just not something
you're like, I'm not doing it, but I'm gonna.
I couldn't do it here. I just know I couldn't, But I was sitting here massaging this thing like it's gonna be my next, Dora Dongo or something.
Yeah.
So like I just couldn't. I don't know. But you're more protective of your time. Like you have a goal to do 3 a set.
Yeah.
Whether it happens or not is whatever. But like, that's
my mechanism for exposure.
I'm not intentional, dude. I'm like a fucking just trout waiting in the water for a hook to fly in front of my face. And then I get pulled up onto the shore.
You're like, how did I even get here? I don't know.
Yeah. What is next? What are we doing?
I haven't talked to you about this, but I actually have a therapy session idea.
Oh, you.
It's been a while, I think, since we've done a therapy sesh. So
okay,
maybe we'll do that.
Okay, we'll do that.